The heated exchange between Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders might have stolen the headlines, but what's more telling is how it revealed a total absence of intervention from coaching staff. While Jeudy unraveled mid-practice, Stefanski and his team stood back, yet again failing to enforce accountability or calm the situation. This silence speaks volumes. It's not just poor chemistry. It's systemic neglect, with Sanders left to play quarterback, team captain, and emotional anchor all at once. This kind of leadership vacuum can't be ignored. Sanders has shown again and again that he has the temperament and focus to lead, but he's being asked to patch holes he didn't punch. With Jeudy struggling and coaches missing in action.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The franchise is leaning on Sanders as a crutch, hoping his resilience will cover for their lack of structure. But for this team to survive, that has to change. The Browns need to start matching Sanders' standard, or they'll continue to burn out the very player they rely on. The footage barely lasts a minute, but it says more than any post-game presser or locker room soundbite ever could. Jeudy, frustrated, animated, confronts quarterback Shedeur Sanders during Browns practice. There's no mistaking the tension. You can see the frustration dripping off Jeudy's body language. He's visibly agitated, pacing, raising his voice. All over a miscommunication on a rep that, frankly, could have gone either way. But here's the thing. It's not just about this play. It's about everything that led up to it. Jeudy walks into that confrontation with a full season of unfulfilled expectations trailing behind him. Drop passes, lazy routes, a glaring lack of energy when the offense is most desperate for anyone, to step up, and instead of looking inward, he chooses to go after Sanders, the one player who's kept this dysfunctional unit from completely collapsing. The irony writes itself. But what really flips the script? Shedeur's reaction. Calm, steady, no chest thumping, no theatrics, just poise. That kind of response doesn't happen by accident. It's learned, it's earned, and it speaks volumes about how different the standards are between these two players right now. One's trying to shift blame. The other's already moved on to the next play. And that's exactly why this clip hit so hard when it went viral. Because it wasn't just about a receiver losing his cool. It was about a team that's unraveling from the inside. This wasn't just another bad look for Jeudy. It was a massive red flag for Browns as a whole. A franchise with a clear leadership vacuum that continues to get exposed every time things get even slightly uncomfortable. You could hear the silence after the video surfaced. Not from the fans. They were talking. Not from the analysts. They were already dissecting. But from inside the organization, crickets. No immediate statement. No visible correction. No coach stepping in to publicly acknowledge the internal tension. And that right there is the problem. It's not just that the team has issues. It's that no one at the top seems willing to address them. And while this dysfunction festers, Sanders is out here doing double duty. Not just managing an offense, but managing the emotions of the guys around him. It's a quiet, thankless kind of leadership. The kind that doesn't show up in stat lines. The kind that gets overlooked when a team's losing. But it's also the kind of leadership that holds a locker room together when things get ugly. And this team is deep in ugly territory right now. Because this isn't a one-off. This is a pattern. Bad chemistry. Bad effort. Bad play calling. And the longer it goes unchecked, the more visible it becomes. And the more it undermines exactly the kind of culture Shedeur is trying to build. Every time he steps on the field, he's playing against two opponents. The team on the schedule and the dysfunction in his own locker room. Jeudy's outburst didn't just reflect personal frustration. It signaled something deeper. When a veteran like him feels comfortable calling out a young quarterback who's outworking and outleading him, that tells you all you need to know about the internal accountability, or lack of it. No one's being checked. No one's being held to a standard. And when that happens, leadership gets buried under chaos. And it's not just the players. Let's talk about the coaching staff. Because this isn't all on Jeudy. He's just the symptom. The larger issue is a Browns offense that looks directionless. Stefanski's game plans have been inconsistent at best, reckless at worst. Week after week, Sanders is being asked to salvage broken plays, adjust to mismatched routes, and operate without a coherent rhythm. The problem isn't Sanders. It's the system that refuses to work with him. He's doing everything right, leading with composure, setting the tone, grinding through adversity. And the reward? Constant scrutiny, limited support, and teammates who don't seem interested in rising to the moment. Let's be clear. Shedeur Sanders is not the problem. He's the only reason the Browns' offense hasn't fully bottomed out. And yet, the media continues to circle him like he's the weak link, as if he's the reason the team can't convert third downs or finish drives. When the truth is painfully obvious, he's the one keeping them competitive despite a carousel of blown assignments and tone-deaf coaching decisions. Meanwhile, the real issues go untouched. Jeudy keeps getting targets. Coaches keep calling plays like they're playing Madden on rookie mode. And no one above Sanders is taking ownership. It's just try again next week energy from a team that desperately needs to hit pause and reassess everything. Because leadership, especially at quarterback, isn't just about talent. It's about tone. And Sanders has set the tone all year. Not with noise, not with drama, but with discipline. While others check out mid-route or fold under criticism, he stays focused. While the media throws shade, he stays grounded. While others vent, he leads. That's not normal. That's rare. And that's exactly why this moment should terrify Browns fans. Not because Jeudy yelled, but because no one stepped in to protect their quarterback. If this is how they treat their most consistent leader in public, what do you think is happening behind the scenes? There's a cost to this kind of dysfunction. It doesn't always show up in the win-loss record right away, but it shows up in how players respond to pressure. It shows up in who gets defended and who gets scapegoated. And it definitely shows up when it's time to decide who stays and who goes. Because at some point, Sanders is going to start asking hard questions. How long is he supposed to play referee between underperforming veterans and disorganized coaches? How long can he keep leading a team that doesn't follow? How long is he expected to carry not just the playbook, but the franchise's hope alone? The Browns are approaching a line they do not want to cross. If they keep making Sanders fight this battle without help, they're going to lose him. Not today, maybe not even this season, but eventually, because leaders like this don't stay in places that don't grow with them. They don't wait around while everyone else figures it out. They move on, and they thrive. So now the question isn't about Jeudy or even about one bad day of practice. It's about whether the Browns recognize the gift they have in Shedeur Sanders, or whether they're going to let the noise, the egos, and the dysfunction drown it out. Let us know where you stand. Is Sanders being hung out to dry? Has Jeudy worn out his welcome? Should the coaching staff be doing more to build around their quarterback instead of letting the chaos fester? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're riding with Shedeur through the storm. And subscribe if you want the real story behind the NFL headlines. Because clearly, we're not getting it from the Browns. What's happening in Cleveland right now isn't just a case of growing pains. It's a slow implosion disguised as a rebuilding year. And at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders, doing everything right while everything around him goes sideways. When Jerry Jeudy barked at Sanders during that now infamous practice exchange, it wasn't just heat-of-the-moment tension. It was a window into a locker room where effort and accountability are optional. Jeudy, whose performance has been a roller coaster of mental lapses and soft routes, chose to confront the one guy who's actually been doing his job. You want to talk about audacity? This moment didn't come out of nowhere. The signs have been building for weeks. Jeudy's production has been flat. His impact on the field? Minimal. And when the pressure rises, rather than reflecting on his own inconsistency, he turns and unleashes it on the quarterback. It's deflection. It's ego. And it's exactly the kind of behavior that thrives when leadership at the top refuses to demand better. And again, Shedeur didn't flinch. He stood there calm, confident, not cold, but composed. That's the part that sticks. Because the easy thing to do would have been to fire back, to match energy with energy. But Sanders isn't interested in theatrics. He's interested in results. And he knows yelling doesn't win games. Execution does. The footage says it all. Jeudy's voice is raised, his gestures wide, his frustration obvious. And Sanders? Silent, focused, eyes locked. Not fazed, not rattled, just still. That's the kind of leadership that doesn't scream for attention. It earns it. But here's the bigger issue. He shouldn't have to be the only one leading. It's a fundamental failure on multiple levels that a second-year quarterback has to be the emotional adult in the room, while veterans melt down and the coaching staff watches from the sidelines. When that kind of dysfunction spills into practice, you know it's been simmering for weeks, and now it's boiling over. The Browns' problems run deep in a bad rep or a drop pass. This team has a chemistry problem, a structure problem, a culture problem, and all of that came crashing into focus the moment Jeudy lost his composure and went after the guy who's been dragging this offense out of the mud week after week. Let's break it down. On paper, the Browns should have enough talent to compete. They've got athletes. They've got tools. But what they don't have is alignment. There's no cohesion, no clarity. And when things go wrong, which they often do, there's no accountability. That's not just a player issue. That's a coaching issue. That's an organizational issue. And who ends up dealing with the fallout? You guessed it, Shedeur Sanders. Every time a receiver doesn't finish a route, every time a line misses a read, every time Stefanski dials up a play that makes no sense, it's Sanders who has to deal with the consequences. And somehow, he does it without pointing fingers, without breaking down, without quitting. That's not just rare. That's elite. And yet, he's the one who takes the heat when things fall apart. The media runs with lazy narratives about inexperience or questions his readiness, while giving veterans a pass. The coaches keep trotting out broken schemes, refusing to adapt to what works for him. And now, even teammates are starting to show cracks under the pressure. But the only thing that hasn't cracked? Shedeur. And that should scare the Browns front office. Because a player like Sanders doesn't stick around in chaos forever. He might be calm. He might be patient. But he's not blind. He sees who's putting in the work and who's not. He knows when he's being supported and when he's being hung out to dry. Right now, he's doing it all alone. There's no reason a quarterback this composed should also be the team's cultural compass. But that's the situation Cleveland has created. Instead of building around their best player, they're watching him get dragged into unnecessary drama by guys who haven't shown up when it counts. Instead of reinforcing his leadership, they're letting it be challenged by people who haven't earned that voice. That's not just disrespectful, it's dangerous. Because quarterbacks like this don't grow on trees. You don't luck into poise, discipline, and maturity like this. And once a player like Sanders starts realizing the organization around him isn't matching his level, it's only a matter of time before he starts thinking about his options. And let's be honest, he'd have them. Teams around the league would line up for a quarterback with Shedeur's leadership profile. He's tough, he's steady, he's smart, and he doesn't just make throws, he makes people better. That kind of presence, you build around it. You don't test it. You definitely don't let it get challenged by underperforming wide receivers at practice. But that's what the Browns are doing right now. They're letting dysfunction breathe, and it's suffocating the progress they should be making. And it's not just Jeudy. He's just the flashiest example. But look around. The receivers aren't running full routes. The offensive line is inconsistent. The play calling lacks imagination. Week after week, it should Shedeur Sanders having to outthink and outlead everyone just to keep the offense competitive. That's not sustainable. Quarterbacks aren't supposed to be babysitters. They're not supposed to micromanage effort. They're not supposed to shoulder the burden of accountability for the entire team. But that's what Sanders has been forced into. And he's handling it with more grace than anyone should expect. But even grace has a limit. And that's the part Cleveland should be paying attention to. Because if this continues, if the pattern of dysfunction, blame shifting, and lack of leadership from the top keeps going, it won't just be the season that's lost. It'll be him. The Browns are at a crossroads. They can either start taking steps to reinforce the leadership they already have, or they can watch it walk out the door when it finally becomes too much. Because Shedeur Sanders has shown who he is. And now the question is, will this franchise match him? Or will they continue letting players like Jeudy and decisions like the ones we keep seeing from Stefanski undermine what could be a franchise-changing? One practice confrontation told us everything. It wasn't just a bad moment. It was a boiling point of everything wrong with this team's culture. And if you're watching from the outside, it's not hard to see what happens next, unless someone finally takes control. Here's the thing. Every team deals with drama. Every locker room has friction. But what we saw in that Jeudy Shedeur Sanders exchange wasn't normal. It wasn't just about a bad play or a moment of miscommunication. That was a flare shot into the sky, signaling a team with deep, unresolved issues. And if you're still trying to downplay it, you're not paying attention. Jeudy didn't just call out a teammate. He confronted the team's most composed, committed, and consistent leader, and not in a closed-door meeting or a sideline huddle. He did it in front of everyone. Loud, emotional, no filters. And it backfired instantly, because in that moment, Jeudy revealed more about himself and the state of this locker room than anyone was ready to admit. The visual contrast couldn't have been clearer. Jeudy, fired up and fuming, gesturing like he just got blindsided by incompetence. Meanwhile, Shedeur stands firm, not passive, not defensive, just present, letting the storm pass while keeping his poise. That's not just quarterback behavior. That's leadership in its purest form. And honestly, that's what makes it so frustrating to watch unfold. Because Shedeur is doing everything right and still being surrounded by the wrong energy. Let's not forget the facts. Sanders isn't the problem. He's the only reason this offense hasn't completely flatlined. He's taken every single missed block, every drop ball, every botched play call, and kept the Browns competitive. He's playing grown man football, while others are playing the blame game. And yet, he's the one constantly under microscope. We've seen this before. Talented young quarterbacks get thrown into chaos, asked to solve every issue, only get blamed when things break down around them. But this isn't just about X's and O's. This is about culture, about expectation, about who's being empowered, and who's being allowed to coast. Jeudy's been a disappointment. That's not speculation. That's been the season. His route running has been inconsistent. His energy dips when he's not the primary target. And when things don't go his way, he checks out. So when he decides to pop off at the one guy who's held steady all year, it's more than just disrespect. It's misdirection. Because what Jeudy really seems frustrated with is himself. But instead of accountability, we got projection. Instead of taking ownership, he threw his hands up and pointed fingers. And the silence from the coaching staff only made it worse. Where was the reset? Where was the response from Stefanski or any of the assistants? You don't just let your starting wide receiver bark on your quarterback mid-practice and walk away. You address it. You shut it down. You protect your leader. But that didn't happen. And that says everything. Because this team isn't being managed. It's being tolerated. 3. And the more you tolerate dysfunction, the more it multiplies. It trickles down from bad play calling to bad habits to broken trust. And eventually it shows up in moments like this. Public, messy, and completely avoidable. You think this confrontation just started at practice? This has been building. You don't erupt like that unless things have been festering behind closed doors. And the fact that it's spilled out now, it means the Browns have lost control of the room. That's not on Sanders. That's on leadership. Sanders has shown, again and again, that he's willing to take on the weight, to stay quiet, to do the work. But you cannot ask one player, especially one this early in his career, to carry the emotional, cultural, and strategic load for an entire franchise. That's not a quarterback's job. That's an organization's job. And right now, the Browns are failing. It's not just Jeudy who needs to be reeled in. It's the whole approach. From coaching decisions that leave Sanders out to dry, to teammates who coast on reputation instead of production, to a front office that seems content with mediocrity, while their most valuable asset is fighting for wins by himself. What's wild is that Shedeur still shows up, still puts his head down, still studies film, still leads drills, still speaks like someone who believes things can turn around. That kind of discipline doesn't last forever, not without reinforcement. You want to build a winning culture? You start with accountability. And that doesn't mean yelling in practice. It means showing up with effort, finishing routes, executing cleanly, backing up your quarterback when things get tough instead of becoming part of the problem. Because what Shedeur showed in that moment Cool-headed leadership under direct pressure is what everybody else on that field should be striving for. And the fact that he had to stand there alone while his teammates and coaches let it happen, that's not leadership from him. That's abandonment from everyone. What's worse is how quickly the narrative shifts. The media has been so quick to frame this as a young quarterback in the middle of controversy, like he caused it, like he should have done something different. Let's be clear, he didn't yell. He didn't start the argument. He didn't lose control. All he did was take it again. So how much longer is he supposed to keep taking it? At some point, even the most mature, composed leader starts asking questions. Is this the team I want to lead? Is this environment good for my career? Am I being given the tools to succeed, or just being asked to survive? And once those questions start, the clock starts ticking. Cleveland needs to wake up, fast, because Shedeur Sanders is the kind of player you build around, not the kind you waste. And right now, they're wasting him, letting internal dysfunction chip away at his foundation, letting teammates like Jeudy run wild without consequence, letting coaching decisions stall out progress week after week. And Sanders? Still clocking in, still doing his part. But he won't do it forever. He's already outgrowing this team's culture. He's showing what real leadership looks like, and exposing how little of it is being shown by the people around him. And if Cleveland doesn't get serious about protecting and empowering their quarterback, they won't just lose games. They'll lose him. Drop a comment and let us know where you stand. Did Jeudy cross the line? Is Sanders being failed by the system? What would you change to fix this mess? Hit that like button if you're tired of watching elite players get buried by bad leadership. And make sure you're subscribed. We're not done with this story, and you already know there's more chaos to come.